Hi, it's Bumble. Welcome back to my channel. So, I'm kind of bummed. I watched this movie when I was out of town, and I enjoyed it so much and had like so many thoughts on it. And it was like already pretty late when I had watched the movie. So at like 1 a.m. that night, I recorded just me talking about it on my phone with like a little voice recorder app. And I've used it before and it usually sounds fine, but because my throat was like so crappy, like my throat was really dry, I didn't sound good, and because it was like 1 a.m, and I didn't really have like a lot of privacy up there anyway, so I didn't really record stuff. This movie was like my one exception. I was trying to keep my voice down, and I thought, okay, maybe if I edit it when I like get home, it's gonna sound fine. But like it sounded so bad, and you couldn't hear me. It just kind of wasn't really usable. And it's a bummer because like that was my thoughts from like right after I watched the movie, and I thought it was like pretty good in terms of like what I was saying. But the movie was so good, and I'd like taken the time to do that I was like, okay, well, I still want to make a video on this. So now I'm home, and it's gonna be fine this time because I'm using my like an actual microphone and everything, like I usually do. But yeah, it's a bummer because now it's like 3 weeks since I've watched the movie and I don't really remember stuff. I still have my notes. I had thought about this. I considered this. I was like, what if I need to make the video again? So I still have all my notes and then everything I wrote, and it's kind of long, but I don't really remember everything or still have the emotional like impact from the movie. Because like I took the time to watch a lot of Disney Channel original movies. I was mostly watching a lot from like the 90s and 2000s. I think this one was from like 2004 though, and there was just a ton of them I'd never seen. I didn't realize until I was looking through Disney Plus there are so many Disney Channel original movies, and I feel like they're various quality. Some of them are really good. Some of them I watch every year, like Twitches, for example. And I mean, they're all kind of like cheesy and stuff. I wouldn't say there's any that are like a cinematic masterpiece or anything for what they are. But yeah, I feel like it's on a scale where some of them are kind of meh or like kind of bad, and some of them are like, okay, this is actually pretty cool. And I feel like it's less like the quality of the movie and more so of like how you feel about it as a viewer. But I will say some of them do have like better acting than others. But they're all like sort of cheesy in their own way, and I have a soft spot for a lot of these movies. Yeah, this one, Pixel Perfect, I'd never heard about it or anything. And then I watched the trailer for it, and it's a movie. There's this guy, his name's Roscoe. His dad is able to create this like holographic technology, and this is one of those where it's like kind of like Smart House, where it's like technology they should not have the year this movie was made, or like things that don't even exist now, kind of. I don't know. It's kind of funny watching this or Smart House, where it's like some of these things we have, but not everything, we don't have like sentient holograms or anything. But yeah, it is kind of funny watching this movie as a Vocaloid fan, because it does feel kind of similar in a sense. But I think what really interested me with this movie was I thought that all the acting was actually pretty good. Like the guy that plays Roscoe, I never watched Phil from the Future, but I guess he's Phil from the Future, so he's like been in other stuff. Like I was legitimately that impressed with his performance, where I'm like, okay, what else is he in? I didn't end up watching Phil from the Future though. I considered it, I could have, but oh, hold on, my clothes are I'm doing laundry right now, so I gotta be right back. Okay, I dealt with my clothes, so unless my dad comes home, I hopefully should not be interrupted anymore. But yeah, I liked this movie. I wanted to make a video of it at some point because there's just so many different like themes in this movie. I find it really interesting. It feels kind of more complex in a way than some of the other Disney Channel movies. I'm not saying this is like the best Disney Channel original movie or anything. I just found it the one that kind of got me thinking the most. And And I feel like even though this is from 2004, there's a lot of stuff in this movie, like a lot of the themes of it, I should say, that are still like occurring things in our time, I guess, because there's like a lot going on. There's I'm just gonna go off the top of my head from what I remember. There's like a sentient hologram named Loretta, so it's one of those kind of stories where it's like a sentient robot learns like what it means to be human, but then there's also the thing with her being like a virtual rock star, and she ends up there's like this music company that tries to buy her out, and it's like this whole thing of like how musicians are treated by like the music industry and stuff, where they view her as like a product instead of a person, and they want to make all of these like different versions of her to sell and stuff, and they don't really care that like she's sentient. And then there's like stuff between the characters. There's this sort of kind of a love triangle between... Oh, wait, I was describing what this movie is originally about. I mentioned about Roscoe, and then I never finished my sentence. Right. I think that'll help explain where I'm going with this. So there's this teenage boy, his name's Roscoe, and his dad makes this like holographic technology for like his company or whatever, and Roscoe has a best friend, and her name is Sam, and she's in this like all-girl like teen band and stuff, and they end up needing like a lead singer, and they try out for all these like people, and Loretta ends up getting picked. But the thing is, Loretta isn't a human being. She's a sentient hologram that Roscoe ends up creating behind his dad's back, but he ends up like kind of caring more about Loretta than he does Sam, and it's like Loretta's kind of becoming more sentient in what she wants as a person, and it's like Sam is really uncomfortable with the idea of Loretta, especially because you find out that Roscoe had kind of a little bit made Loretta in like Sam's image. It's kind of like if you had a crush on somebody and they were able to create like an artificial like better version of you, and like preferred that version of you to like the actual you. That's like basically what Sam's going throughout this movie. So there's like a lot of things just kind of going on with this, but especially between these three characters. Like even from the beginning, you can kind of see where Loretta's going as a character. Like one of the first things she does, because she's, I'd say like somewhat sentient. It's kind of hard to say. Where it's like she reaches out to a bird, but she doesn't have the ability to go outside. I don't remember what the movie's excuse is, but it's like if she goes outside, she like disappears and stuff. And she's only used to perform, like even by her creator. Oh, sorry if there's like a cracking noise. I have this like coil thing around the mic, and I keep like kind of playing with it as I'm talking. I'm gonna try not to do that. Loretta, even by her creator, is used... Like he cares about her and stuff, but he still kind of treats her like an object rather than a person in a sense. But I think it's partially because like he sort of has to, in a way, of like she does eventually have to get like turned off or put away into this little like device thing, but she is at the same time only really used to perform. It's like she'll perform and then she gets kind of put to sleep, and that's it. They don't let her just like really roam around the house or anything or do stuff. And she has needs and she questions things, but she also can't like completely think on her own, where she needs information about stuff and needs to be like monitored all the time. But then she also eventually ends up like questioning Roscoe or kind of like bullying Sam. And there's like this part where she ends up having to go on a double date. And she has to be fed information like the entire time. It's not like the person she's with can make like actual conversation with her, so it's like a bit complicated of like how much of her own free will and thoughts does she have, and that gets like explored throughout the movie, which I always find those kind of stories of like an AI or whatever, or like a robot that ends up kind of becoming more human as the story goes along. And that's like only one of the plots of this movie, not even like the main one. But yeah, I think Roscoe building a hologram that's like a more talented version of his best friend is like kind of messed up, and I'm glad he ends up getting called out on it. And Loretta is like a little bit creepy. I like that the movie never forgets to remind you that she isn't a human person and that she's like a hologram, no matter like how realistic she is, where when she sings she sounds fine, but when she talks it's in this kind of robotic tone, and she can't be captured on like photographs, or like if you try to take a picture of her, it's her, but like there's all these weird lines and it like glitches weird. And Roscoe as a person ends up kind of changing too, where like he becomes a bit of a jerk once he ends up creating Loretta, especially to Sam. Sam as a character, I just felt so sorry for her the entire movie, where like Roscoe asks her out to dinner as like a double date, and it's like of course to be like a double date thing, and it's not that he actually wants to go out with Sam, it's like an excuse to, as part of a way to like save his dad's company and stuff. And then during the date Loretta ends up like breaking down, and she looks kind of freaky looking, where she like gains multiple mouths. There's this part that's kind of funny where some random guy in the restaurant sees, and he like chokes on his food of like, you know, why does this woman have, and of course the effect looks weird because again this is from 2004, so like a lot of the effects in this movie don't look good, but like imagining it from like how it looks in universe, of like if you saw someone that had like 3 mouths or whatever, but it almost kind of reminded me of The Mask a little bit, about how cartoony some of the effects are. And like Loretta isn't really like a nice person either. She's like really mean to Sam, where Sam is telling her like, yeah, you may know everything and you can get any information you want off the internet, but you don't know what it's like to experience things. And Loretta gets like really snooty, but the sad thing is like Loretta does want to feel stuff. Like there's a part at the end where she like finally gets to experience like what being in the rain is like. She does get like a little nicer like as the movie goes on though. Or another thing with Sam is like she's the one in her band that writes all the songs, and like Loretta's forced to sing them, so I felt kind of bad for Sam, where it's like she writes a song of wanting to be noticed, and it's like obviously directed towards Loretta, especially because like Roscoe never stops talking about her, but he doesn't realize, oh hey, this song that my friend wrote about wanting to be noticed, maybe this has to do with my behavior. And then you find out that only 4% of Loretta is based on Sam, which I feel like no matter how much of her ends up being the blueprint for Loretta, it would kind of end badly, of like only a little bit of like, wow, okay, he doesn't actually really care about me. But if it was a lot, it would be like, oh, so you're like trying to replace me and stuff. And it's like, what even is Roscoe's long-term plan for Loretta anyway, where it's like she's so like kind of naturally talented, or she'd seem that way to people that don't know she's a hologram. It's like, of course talent scouts would want her, and that leads to like the second half of the movie where she does end up getting discovered, and there's like this part where she's in front of a crowd and during a big performance, and Loretta ends up glitching. I thought it would have been that it would be like a big reveal at like the end of the movie of like, oh, she's actually a hologram, and that people would hate it originally when she glitches, and things would end up getting worse, but or maybe it'd be like, oh, but we're already your fan, we don't care what you're like, and instead it's like everyone loves it and thinks it's like really cool. And I kind of I was more interested in the band and Sam and Roscoe and stuff, even though Roscoe's not part of the band, than I was Loretta. I kind of wish the movie was about... I feel like the movie could have been about them, but then that would be a completely different movie of like a teen band that is trying to make it big and stuff. I wouldn't be surprised if that already was like a Disney Channel original movie. Like there's a focus on Sam, but you don't really get to know the two members. The other members, I don't even know their names. They're kind of just there. But then I felt bad for them anyway, because the record label does end up picking up the band, but they only care about Loretta. They even eventually want to like replace the band and stuff. And there's this part where Loretta, she ends up really proud of herself of writing a song, and then you find out that the song is actually just lines from other songs mashed together. Just like an IRL AI would do, where it's the idea of like Loretta as sentient as she can be, like, and it's like a theme throughout the movie. She can't actually create anything, and I kept thinking about that of like, you know, how like generative AI and stuff is used now, where it's like it pulls as like sort of quote unquote inspiration from like existing artwork and stuff, but it can't like make up something completely by itself. So that was interesting to see in this movie. And then there's this part that's actually kind of really cool. Like visually it's super weird, where Loretta's upset. She gets into an argument with Roscoe about like she wants to do things and she can't. Like she can't go outside, she can't have a life for herself. She wants to go to Japan for some reason. And then you get to see what the inside of the internet looks like, where she ends up going inside of the internet. It almost reminded me of like Wreck-It Ralph 2 a little bit, which is a movie that I try to forget exists. But naturally I was thinking about that because that's also a movie about going on the internet. But with that one, it was kind of focused on like, hey, here's all the things that Disney owns, and not really much about the internet. But this one kind of, this portion of the movie where Loretta goes inside the internet is like what I wish Wreck-It Ralph could have been like, the second one I mean. Where the internet's viewed as like a really weird place in this movie, where it's this void of all of these moving icons. I like the idea of like search engines being literal vehicles. It made me wish if this movie was just like this robot wanting to become real and her journey through the internet and stuff. And then the people on the internet think that like Loretta's a virus and they try to like destroy her. But yeah, her journey and the way the internet's depicted is like really abstract. It almost looks like it would be like a 90s music video or something. It was just kind of really interesting to me. And then she ends up getting lost and fails and emails herself to Sam, and she ends up going back into the internet later, but not for very long. But yeah, it just felt so different from like everything else in this movie. It kind of threw me off. And there's this part when Sam is telling Roscoe of like, I'm real, I'm right here, and she ends up kissing him, and then he doesn't even really react that much, and he starts talking about Loretta, and I'm like, oh my gosh, he's so freaking dense. And then it's weird because like Roscoe does feel romantic feelings. I think he does deep down a little bit towards Sam, but like because Loretta's there, he's like kind of projecting it on Loretta. There's this part when she asks Roscoe to describe what emotions and romance are like, and he gives this really long description and tries to touch her cheek, and she doesn't understand, and she can't like actually physically feel anything. And then the movie gets really weird. Well, not completely. Like, a bunch of music industry people and a holographic company, they want to make, like, holographic singers that they don't have to pay. That's what I was saying earlier. It's kind of partially about, like, the music industry and how they treat artists. And they end up actually buying Loretta. and she ends up, I think, escaping back onto the internet or something for a bit. And then there's this part, this is what I meant when it gets weird, where Sam has to dress up as Loretta to perform because Loretta doesn't show up. Because and it's not the point when she's bought out by the record company, it's the point where she's just in the internet. And then at that point, Sam has kind of been watching videos of Loretta and stuff and learned how to dance. Because that's the main thing. Like, the reason the band wasn't doing well in the first place, or I think they were doing fine, but it was just like they were trying to get noticed by like talent scouts and stuff, was that their lead person, Sam, like wasn't as like charismatic. She didn't dance or anything, she would just sing, and that's kind of why Loretta gets made in the first place, and she ends up replacing Sam. But then Sam learns how to like dance and stuff. She kind of changes her look a little bit, not just like us dressing up as Loretta. And then I was thinking, oh yeah, the band doesn't really need Loretta. And then I was like, oh wait, never mind, because Sam ends up failing to do a cartwheel, and then she falls off stage. And then it gets super weird where she ends up in a coma, and she gets connected to this like brain machine in the hospital, and Loretta is able to go, because it's one of those like fantasy technology things where it's like Loretta being not real means she can go inside of any technological device, and she goes into Sam's brain. But then you get like a scene with her and Sam, and you get to see a bit of Loretta's character growth where she finally understands what learning is, but knows that she can't do it. And you find out that like Loretta and Sam are jealous of each other, where Loretta is perfect, but she's limited and she doesn't have freedom. And then Sam has the ability to create, and it's something that Loretta can't do. And it ends up, the visuals get like really funky where it's like Loretta alters Sam's like brain environment, and it's all of these really bad effects, and it was really distracting because it's supposed to be like a heartfelt moment and stuff between these two characters, but the visuals just kind of ruin it because they're like laughably bad. Hold on. And then somehow Loretta ends up taking over Sam's body, and on one hand I wanted to be happy for Loretta because she gets to be human for like a couple of minutes, but I was completely distracted by the horror of like someone just took over Sam's body, and Loretta even says there can only be one person at one time, and she does end up giving it up, where Sam gets to be herself again, and it ends up, you know, making her not in the coma anymore. But I had the horror thought of like, what if Loretta decided not to give up Sam's body? What if she just... And the thing is, like, Roscoe realizes that, oh, that's not Sam, that's Loretta, you know, controlling Sam's body. But her parents don't realize that, and they think like, oh, Sam, hooray, you woke out of the coma. And I thought this could go in a horror direction so fast if Loretta, you know, didn't do what she ends up doing. But yeah, she finally gets to touch Roscoe and kind of returns the favor of like, he touches her cheek at an earlier point in the movie, but his hand kind of goes through her, but now she gets to touch him. And it's basically that Loretta has to die for Sam to get her body back, because they both can't exist in there. And Loretta ends up talking to Sam, and he has to explain that he actually wants, talking to Loretta and explaining that he actually wants Sam, and telling her of like he loves Sam because of her imperfections, because Loretta doesn't get it. She's like, why do you want Sam? And she finally gets to experience Rain, and I don't really know what happens to her. She like dies. I think it's that she tries to leave Sam's body, and the thing is she can't exist outside. But at that point, it doesn't feel like she's a hologram anymore. She, like, becomes a ghost or something. It's like the way she leaves Sam's body is, like, really weird. But she kind of does sort of become a ghost. There's, like, a part when the band ends up performing and Sam looks back and there's this spot. They're, like, indoors, but there's, like, moonlight coming through, and she, like, sees Loretta, where Loretta, like, only appears in light. And she's able to do, like, backing vocals for the band. So it is kind of, like... Sam gets to be in charge of the band again, and Loretta sort of exists. She just can't exist as like a person. I guess it's a way to say like, yeah, she sacrificed herself for Sam, but she's not completely dead. A little bit confusing, but yeah, that's pretty much all my thoughts in this. But yeah, it was. I like really enjoyed it, and I got like super into it as I was watching. I know I don't sound as like enthusiastic as I should, but like trust me, in the original audio that I did, the recording, I was very much excited. I think it's just like once it's been a while since I've watched something and I try to talk about it again, I don't really remember it as much, or the excitement isn't there. But this was honestly really good. But yeah, I'm glad I got to talk about it. I'm so glad I kept my original notes, or I would have been struggling really bad. I'm probably not going to talk about other Disney Channel original movies I watched. I will say there were a couple of other ones that I liked. Like there was another one. Let me see if I have the title. Do I have the title written down? Going to the Mat. Yeah, that was the other one that I really liked, where it's about this blind kid. His name is Jace, and he ends up joining the high school wrestling team. And that one was honest. That one doesn't have any like supernatural elements or anything that, a lot of Disney Channel originals do. That's the other thing. It's like there's a lot of ones that have like supernatural concepts, but there's also ones that are just about sports. There are so many Disney Channel original movies about sports. But yeah, that one is about wrestling. And it was really good, honestly. But yeah, I don't have my notes for it, though. I did take notes, and then I deleted them. But that one I'd also recommend. These two movies aren't even, like, related to each other in any way. But yeah, they were both good. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks for listening.